And we're back for the second half of the last lecture, this one being on functions within groups. And so it's we're talking about leadership this portion. With this portion, I'm just talking about leadership, and I have a little note there about Kylo Ren. I have a clip. It's from Saturday Night Live about Undercover Boss and Star Wars stuff. If you're interested in a laugh about bosses and leadership, watch it. If you're not, pass on by. But it's there for you. So leadership. I want to talk about responsibilities and culture, right? So how does culture frame or affect how we see leaders, what we look for leaders, and that sort of thing. Woo! So what is leadership? Many times we think of leaders, I think this begins when we're very young probably, we think about leadership as being a matter of control. And in fact, there are a number of people who see the job of leadership as being one about control, that their job is to influence group members. I mean, control group members, I suppose, but influence them, get them to do certain things by having them exactly or to do their want and their will. And the goal of the leader of control is keeping the group heading in the direction that I see and that I want. And leaders having vision is in fact very important. But that's the idea of leadership as being control. A contrasting idea is one of leadership as being an act of empowerment or of service. So if you have a group, is your job as a leader of the group to tell them what to do, or is your goal to serve them and make sure they have everything they need to be the most effective members of the group that they can? Right? So you're helping others maximize their potential. Right? What can I do to support all of you in this thing that we're trying to do? How can I help you help all of us? Ooh, the ripple. And there's some different theories on leadership. One of those is a traits approach. Boy, that's an annoying animation, huh? The traits approach, the idea that there's just certain traits that make for good leader. Again, intellect, confidence, sociability are some of the big ones that we think of. There are then more functional approaches that it's not about a good leader or what a leader should be isn't having intellect, confidence, or sociability. Not that any of those are necessarily bad, but that a good leader is one who serves the needs of that group in that moment, right? So that's, again, there's this board I'm serving on. We're in this interim phase of our leadership. We've had a wonderful leader from a very functional perspective, seeing that when she came in, the group had, the larger body had to create a rift just from some past experiences in the organization that were problematic, and helping us to heal so we can come together and be ready then for whoever it is that we bring in as our next leader, right? So that's a more functional approach, right? Transformational, this is someone who, again, transformational leadership, it's all about inspiring people. These are the people who they encourage you to do and be all you can be, right? So and this is sort of a servicey empowerment sort of approach, perhaps. These can be, but it's very transformational. It's just about inspiring people, igniting the fire within them to be excited to do whatever it is the group is trying to do here, business, etc. Right? And there's a situational approach, right? Situational approach, and that is there's a telling style, right? And it's called situational, by the way, because in certain situations we need certain things, right? So the situational approach to leadership says that it's about the situation and what do you have going on. And so sometimes what you have is that people just aren't sure what to do and how to navigate it. And so you need somebody to come in with a telling style to say, listen, this is how you do the thing. You all just don't know. Let me tell you, let me teach you. Right? Oh, we got two of them coming in at once there, right? So they get their participating style when what you need is about getting people to work together again. Like I said, that person who I'm working with right now, who the very sort of functional approach, what do you need? Situationally, a situational perspective would say that she's really strong in the participating style because the community needed cohesion, right? As opposed to delegating. Delegating works, by the way. Delegating as a leadership style, because people talk a lot about, good leaders, they just delegate. Well, situational approach says only in certain situations. And delegating only works when everybody is already capable and excited. Right. So think about those in the situational approach, those previous styles. The telling style suggests that people don't know what they're doing. But people know what they're doing is easier to delegate. right? The selling style, creating investment, getting people to feel like this is all really good and important. They should care about it, right? A participation style, feeling like we can all work together as a group, right? If you have those elements there, they are energized, they do feel they're a group, then yeah, you can probably use this delegating style, but you can't just use it everywhere because sometimes people don't know what they're doing. They don't feel good about what they're doing, and they don't feel good about the people they're working with, right? So delegating is not going to work then, right? So situational approach says it's about the situation is going to dictate it, right? Ooh, boy, I feel bad I didn't use that earlier. Very fancy. So leadership is often associated with power for some obvious reasons, and that power can come from different places. One of those is legitimate power. God love Judge Judy. I'm the boss, applesauce, right? So legitimate power is the idea that a leader in a group, and there might be a formal leader, or especially someone doing this, right? The legitimate power is somebody who's the leader in a group because they have an appointed leader. They've been named the leader. You come into a job, they're your supervisor. They have legitimate power. So their power in the organization it's legitimate because it's sort of like coded into the system. Their job title says, right, they are leader, they are supervisor, they're your boss. Right? A difference from a power is expert power. Think about in groups you've worked in, maybe you've had study groups, maybe at work, volunteer groups, that there are certain people, they know more than the others do. They just know more. And so because of that, they often emerge as a leader or is seen as a leader because of what they know, the experiences they have. So that becomes a form of power they have. They may not be a legitimate leader because maybe there's not even a sort of legitimate leader, or there is a legitimate leader, but this person also has a lot of leadership within the group and a lot of power just because they know more than others, right? And there's coercive power, which is people who have the ability to make your life miserable. Right? They're coercive. They're the ones who often they may be in legitimate positions, but not always, but they know how to punish you, how to take away things you care about, how to give you crap jobs or make sure you end up with the crappy jobs, right? They have coercive power. And so you do things out of intimidation as opposed to reward power. Those are people that you follow and you see as leaders because they often know how to, well, just to reward you, to help you find recognition, maybe material reward, and you end up seeing them as a leader because of how they're able to give you the things that you need and you desire. So those are some of the different forms of power or different ways people establish themselves as leaders, whether they're officially leaders or not. Or these are the different ways that power, right, comes to them. Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking one about where's part of them being nice, right? Referent power, right? Referent power are those they yeah, they are liked by the right sort of people. And so they have power because the right people like them, so they have what we call referent power. The right people like them, and therefore they have power. Like say they're likable, or they're liked by the influencers, if you will. Woo! Exciting. So what are some leadership skills? Well, first, you have to prepare members and start interaction. Right. As a leader, it's not it's not just about getting your way, right? So you just start by preparing the members and starting interaction, making sure people know what we're here for, what we're doing, helping everybody get their mindset because they're sort of wandering in and plopping down in their chairs. You help them really get themselves focused and set. Let them know, okay, it's time for us to really get started. Now think about these Zoom meetings where everybody's sort of staring at their screen. You need the person to say, okay, everybody, let's go ahead and focus now on what we're going to be doing. So preparing members and starting interaction. A strong leadership skill, we keep coming back to these same ideas about building group cohesion, helping the group to feel like they should be a group and they care about each other. Because again, if not, you end up with things like social loafing. Right? And they maintain effective interaction. Right? Leaders are ones who they are able to, if you think back to some of that gatekeeping stuff, right, and some of that harmonizing, it just keeps the interaction being productive, being healthy. That's a really important leadership skills, being able to do that. So as the youngest of 5 children, My sister, I saw as sort of my sister Karen. I saw as sort of a leader, even though she's younger than my brother, because there was really the first two of us, and then I'm part of the next three. Uh, and that was just because she was always working so much to keep harmony between my brother and me that she was emerged like a leader to me because she knew how to try to maintain a sort of harmony between us, which is pretty rough to do. Uh, so guide members through. There's an agenda. We're all supposed to be doing these things, and a good leader guides you through the agenda, the plan that we have and what we should be doing, right? And not groups are not about everyone necessarily being always happy, but a good leader is one that keeps resentment and bitterness from growing. They help people to feel like they're satisfied, um, that they're being listened to, that they're important to the group. And that keeps that member satisfaction high. And that high member satisfaction ends up leading to higher group productivity and effectiveness. Right? And they empower their group members. Right? They help them to feel like they have a voice. They should speak up. They are capable. People who feel like they're more capable are more likely to volunteer to do things. People who don't feel they're capable, I shouldn't say it's like a maxim, but very often, people who don't feel like they're capable don't step up because they don't think they'll succeed, as opposed to saying, oh, I bet I can do that. Sure, hand it my way. I'll take care of it. Right? So good leaders are able to empower the group members to feel like they can take responsibility, that their thoughts are worth something, that they can question the group, thinking about groupthink. And they encourage this ongoing evaluation and improvement. Again, you see this about warding off groupthink. Getting the group to always say, what do we want to do next? What could we be doing better? Where do you think our weaknesses are? What are our dreams and hopes? Right? So that's what a good leader does, is help the group to think about where they are and what they could be. And think about those managers you've worked for that you really couldn't stand. They're probably people who never want to reflect at all on, are you happy here? Is this good for you? They didn't want to do that. Right? They weren't interested in that. They just wanted you all to do what they wanted and shut up. And good leaders have to be able to manage conflict. Probably a very obvious thing at this point in the course and also in our discussion of group communication. But being able to manage conflict, not always resolve conflict, though being able to do that is wonderful, but to manage conflict, that people can walk away, maybe not in agreement, but feeling respected and that this can still be a productive venture for them. And good leaders, they're mentors, right? They're mentors. They're the person that you look up to, the person you want to be like. They come to you and they see how they can help you. They give you advice. They give you encouragement. They may not even truly be a leader, but they end up moving into a leadership position, very likely, because they're always seeing what others who are more junior or more vulnerable or more nervous, or not nervous, but just unsure of themselves, what they need to become more effective in their jobs. I think about the university, the people who took the time to mentor me, to see what resources I needed, to guide me, to advise me who to stay away from and who to work with. That to me, they really became leaders within my program, within my college, within my university. Ooh, shatter. We're going to finish up talking about culture and leadership, and there's two concepts of culture I want to talk about here. The first of them is this notion of individualistic versus collectivistic cultures. We've talked about individualism and collectivism before, way back at the beginning of the semester. Right? Because in individualistic cultures, you are just responsible to your own conscience. Right? Whatever you think is good for you, whatever you think is best for you, that's what you're responsible to do. Right? You succeed or you fail. That's the takeaway here. In the end, if you do well, you succeed. And if you don't do well, then you failed. And so it's all about just that one person. In a collectivistic culture, it's very much about the group, right? You're responsible not to yourself and how you feel about yourself and your conscience, but to how will others look at the group? How will the other group members feel? How will this impact the people in the group in personal and professional ways, right? So we succeed or fail. Right? By you failing because you're part of us, we all failed. Right? So thinking about how this affects leadership and how leaders want to inspire others and how they feel like, listen, you want to try, you go ahead, you fail, right? As opposed to the pressure, but also the investment of a leader who's more collectivistic in making sure you succeed, because if you don't succeed, we all look bad. It's the old Vidal Sassoon motto or slogan. At Vidal Sassoon, if you don't look good, we don't look good. All right. Collectivistic culture. Ooh, origami. That's probably my favorite one. And then we get to culture and culture leadership, though, but talking about high and low power distance cultures. We've talked about this before, right? High power distance cultures, there's a lot of power up here at the top. That's where the power is. It's all up here. Usually very much legitimate power or a lot of legitimate power. There's a strong respect for authority. You would never think of calling your professor by their first name. You would actually be afraid to contact your professor. As your professor, I hope you feel free to contact me, though admittedly, I don't want you to call me by my first name. I want you to call me Dr. Berkeley or Professor Berkeley. That's another thing for another time, perhaps. But right, but in high power distance cultures, also we avoid challenging and questioning power. If your professor says something, that's it. It's done. You don't have a place to question it, right? So high power distance cultures, and the U.S. is really not a high power distance culture, right? Our power is really not concentrated that much at the top. We believe in there being a diffusion of power throughout the system, right? There is a respect for authority, but yet there's a real sort of pride in being willing to challenge authority. And not saying that protest is bad. I mean, think about Black Lives Matter. Yeah, protest is pretty useful. It's a matter of life and death. But well, yeah. So respect that a strong respect for authority, as opposed to being willing to, I think, with that next thing, question authority and challenge authority, right? Which you'd never do in a high power distance culture. In low power distance, yeah, the power is distributed more. As opposed to a lot of the power up here, there's a lot of power here. There's also some power here and here and here, right? Maybe less so as we go down, but everybody has a certain say and role and job in this process, right? So it's a lower power distance culture. Authority is often being questioned. People are always unsure or a little suspicious of those with so much power. Absolute power corrupts absolutely. Ben Franklin was onto something, right? That's the motto there. So that's at low power distance cultures. There's a sort of suspicion about authority. And the idea that, yeah, value for authority being questioned. That you should question your leaders. You should stand up to them if you feel that something is wrong. That would be a low power distance culture. And you can see how leaders in high power distance cultures, those leaders expect people just to sit down and shut up and do what I say. And in low power distance cultures, those are leaders who have to be ready for people to question them more, right? To people who expect to have more of a say and control, and for the leader not to have the absolute power. So just again, be aware of how as we change across cultures, how that affects the way that we see and think about leaders and leadership. And with that, we conclude our lecture.